not enduring, not giving in. This is the only way to survive a narcissistic relationship. Think of a narcissistic relationship as a hallway lined with doors that all seem to promise relief, but every one of them opens to the same dead end. Over time, most people cycle through these doors repeatedly, hoping that this time the outcome will be different. One door leads to self-blame, convincing yourself that if you were more patient, clearer, calmer, or less difficult, the relationship would finally work. Another door pulls you into endless engagement, circular arguments, gaslighting, word salad, emotional battles that drain your energy day after day, only to end with you still feeling at fault. Then there's the third door, disengagement. Pulling back, lowering the volume, refusing the bait. The painful realization is that none of these doors lead to a reward. There is no prize waiting behind one of them. Eventually, many people have to admit this isn't a game of chance where the right choice wins. It's a setup where every option costs you something. With that realization, healing often begins to point toward disengagement, not because it feels good, but because it makes the most sense. Continued engagement rarely produces clarity or connection. Instead, it allows the narcissistic person to double down on their distorted story about you and about reality itself. Very little is actually heard, and almost nothing is resolved. That's why disengagement doesn't mean total silence in every situation. It means being deliberate. You stop reacting to every provocation and reserve your energy for what truly matters: facts, logistics, and the few high-stakes issues that genuinely require your involvement. You are no longer trying to be understood by someone who has shown you repeatedly that understanding is not the goal. Disengagement naturally intertwines with radical acceptance. When you step back, you're not just changing your behavior, you're quietly acknowledging a hard truth. This is not a relationship that will become emotionally safe or mutual. Even when you must stay connected for practical reasons, children, finances, work, you stop anchoring yourself to the hope that things will suddenly transform. That hope, as painful as it is to release, has often been the most exhausting part of all. Letting it go doesn't erase the sadness, but it does clear the fog. And yet, disengagement comes with its own emotional fallout. Many people feel guilty, cold, or even manipulative for pulling back. Others experience a strange sense of pity for the narcissistic person who no longer has an audience or a sparring partner. This is worth sitting with. Is disengagement manipulation? It only crosses that line if it's being used as a covert strategy to force change or extract care. But when disengagement comes from the sober recognition that nothing you say or do will correct the other person's distorted view of you or the situation, it isn't manipulation, it's self-preservation. Most people arrive at disengagement through sheer exhaustion or through the painful clarity that change is not coming. They've tried explaining, defending, empathizing, proving, and pleading. They've listened to accusations that bear little resemblance to reality. Claims like "you're always needy, you get your way all the time," or "no one here does anything but you complain." When reality is constantly rewritten, there is no conversation that can fix it. Disengagement is not giving up, it's opting out of a rigged exchange. This step can be profoundly healing because it conserves energy and slowly loosens the trauma bond. You stop pouring yourself into a system that only depletes you. That doesn't mean the emotional and physical reactions vanish overnight. Your body may still react before your mind catches up, and in vulnerable moments you may find yourself pulled back into familiar, chaotic conversations. That isn't failure, it's part of the process. Each slip becomes information, a reminder of how unchanged the pattern truly is, and an invitation to become more curious about your triggers, your history, and what your nervous system is trying to resolve. Sometimes disengagement doesn't go unnoticed. Narcissistic individuals who are perceptive, anxious, or highly invested in control often sense the shift. They may accuse you of punishment or withdrawal, so now you're not talking to me? Even when your demeanor is calm and polite. You might quietly do things yourself, without resentment or commentary, and find that this unsettles them more than open conflict ever did. They may not want to help, but they also don't want you to be unbothered. Watching you step out of your old role disrupts the narrative they rely on. In some cases, they'll accuse you of playing games or trying to make them look bad, which is revealing in itself. It shows that on some level, they understand the dynamic depends on your participation. When you stop getting into the mud, stop arguing, defending, or proving, you expose the relationship for what it is. This kind of calm disengagement resembles yellow rock, still present, still civil, but no longer emotionally available for distortion and drama. There may still be consequences, but clarity replaces confusion. Ultimately, disengagement strips away the illusion that your words or efforts are what keep the relationship stuck. You see, often with painful relief, that the dynamic only functions when you play your assigned role. Once you stop performing it, the machinery breaks down. And in that breakdown, while nothing magically improves, something crucial happens. You finally see the truth without interference. When you don't yet realize that engaging with them is the very mud that keeps you stuck, it's easy to believe that staying in the conversation will eventually change something. We tend to associate healing with relief, feeling lighter, calmer, more at peace. That expectation is exactly why disengagement can feel so disorienting. Instead of immediate comfort, it often brings guilt, sadness, and a strange sense of moral unease. Stepping back doesn't always feel like progress at first. Sometimes it feels like you've done something wrong. I had a moment not long ago with someone in my life who fits this pattern all too well. I've long since accepted the reality of that relationship, understood its limits, and disengaged as fully as circumstances allow. Our interactions are civil. I don't react to provocations. I don't spiral over their entitlement, their emotional blind spots, or their chronic lack of curiosity about my life. I know what's coming, and I know why contact still exists, so I manage it accordingly. I assume, accurately, that my inner world doesn't interest them. I don't offer updates, joys, struggles, or vulnerabilities. I keep conversations light, almost absurdly so, anchored in surface-level details. Anything they know about me tends to come secondhand. Then one day, unexpectedly, this person showed genuine interest in something that mattered deeply to me and made a real effort to help. It just so happened that I was on my way to catch a train or a flight, rushing out the door, and I physically couldn't receive the help being offered. In that brief moment, what they were offering actually was kind. It was thoughtful, and it hurt more than I expected. Something old and fragile stirred, the faint echo of the trauma bond, whispering that maybe this time was different, that maybe I had misjudged them, that perhaps this disconnect was somehow my fault. I thanked them and left. But sitting in the taxi, I felt nauseous, as if I had just rejected someone undeserving of that rejection. I felt pity. I felt sorrow. I even felt a creeping sense of shame, like I had abandoned someone who was finally showing up. My body reacted faster than my intellect. Still, I breathed. I grounded. I reminded myself of what I know. The discomfort lingered, but clarity slowly returned. What became obvious again was this. Their timing was entirely about them. The help hadn't come when I was clearly overwhelmed or struggling. They hadn't asked about my schedule. They hadn't noticed the packing, the plans, the urgency of that day. They offered help when it suited them, when it felt good to them, when it aligned with their internal moment, not with my actual needs. And I remembered how many times I had bent myself into knots to accommodate their help on inconvenient, random, or poorly timed terms, convincing myself that flexibility equaled closeness and that compromise meant connection. As the hours passed, through rest, journaling, reflection, therapy, that sharp sting softened. The trauma bond still made its appearance, because it always does, but it didn't take over. What once would have lived in my chest for months dissolved in days. That more than anything is what healing looks like. Not the absence of pain, but the shortening of its lifespan. Part of the sadness came from my empathy. I saw someone attempt something that resembled effort, however limited or self-centered it may have been. But the wiser part of me understood that their behavior still centered on themselves, just as it always had. Empathy without wisdom traps us. Wisdom without empathy hardens us. Healing lives in the space where the two coexist, where you can see clearly and still feel human. For many people who choose disengagement, this is the emotional tax. You may feel cold. You may feel rejecting. Others may even label you that way. Outsiders often don't understand and may say things like, they just want to talk. Why can't you? Those judgments can sting, especially when you've spent years overextending yourself. But the alternatives are familiar and costly. Trying harder and blaming yourself when nothing changes, or staying fully engaged and drowning in conflict, confusion, and self-doubt. Disengaging, calmly, respectfully, but firmly, often brings guilt and pity, particularly when the other person is momentarily off balance or unexpectedly kind. Even so, it remains the path that most reliably leads to acceptance and recovery. It's tempting to retreat from it because sadness feels heavier than anger. When you were still fighting, it was easier to tell yourself that both of you were at fault. Disengagement removes that illusion. It forces you to see the truth without distractions. Empathic wisdom is what sustains disengagement. It isn't cruelty, punishment, or emotional withdrawal. It's the delicate balance of protecting yourself while acknowledging the other person's limitations. It's choosing awareness over reactivity. And yes, it still hurts. But among the available options, it's the door that leads somewhere, slowly, imperfectly, and with far less damage than the others.